What do you know about fishing in the first place? When did you ever catch anything?
Well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole. I can't think of a better way to pass the time of day.
RodMob, your Northern California fishing podcast.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott, sounding all silky and smooth on my new Aphex channel microphone master preamp.
And I'm Sarah. I'm counting down the days to our trip out to Lake Berryessa next Saturday for the Salute to Summer Park Party and Derby.
It's Sunday, June 1st, and you're tuned in to the RodMob. This is episode 87 of your weekly Northern California fishing podcast. This episode is sponsored by Feisty Fish Guide Service.
On today's show, Captain Jay Lopes brings us the latest from the San Francisco Bay.
We talked Donner Lake with Rick Kennedy of Tightlines Guide Service.
Kenny Priest is back with another update from the North Coast.
Father's Day is just around the corner, and do we have a gift for you? How about a free fishing trip for you and your dad?
And we've got all the week's best bites, hot spots, and trout plants too. But first, it's time for the news.
Here's Sarah with the latest headlines.
Need an excuse to hit the water? Well, we've got one. The first week of June is National Fishing and Boating Week. National Fishing and Boating Week highlights the importance of recreational boating and fishing in enhancing people's quality of life and preserving our country's natural beauty. Did you know that boating is ranked as one of the top 3 of all stress-relieving activities? Fishing and boating are also a great way to connect with nature, and they're within reach. 90% of Americans live within an hour of navigable water. Plus, the funds from your fishing licenses and boating registrations go toward the conservation of our natural aquatic areas. So, this week, plan a stress-relieving activity with your family. Get on out and go fishing. The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization released a new series of guides this week that will make it easier for fishers to ID deep sea sharks. The new guides are aimed at improving catch reporting and making deep sea fisheries more sustainable. Sharks can be impacted by boats trawling for fish in deep sea fisheries, and the survival rate of deep sea bycatch species after being released is really low. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that the lack of detailed information on this bycatch makes it hard to understand what effects these fisheries are having on marine ecosystems. Joanne Fisher of FAO's Fish Finder program was quoted this week saying, "There's a large variety of weird and wonderful species down there that play an important role in deep sea ecosystems, but scientists and fishers alike can have trouble identifying them as there are few identification tools available. Instead, they tend to lump species together as deep sea sharks when they report their catches." The new FAO Deep Sea Guides will help fishers provide more detailed information, and as a result, countries will be in a better position to implement FAO's international guidelines for the management of deep sea fisheries in the high seas, which set out recommendations for the conservation and management of vulnerable ecosystems. The first guide on deep sea vulnerable species focuses on the Indian Ocean, one of the most diverse and least understood regions when it comes to deep sea cartilaginous fish. About 36% of the world's deep sea cartilaginous species call the Indian Ocean home. Good news for fish. This week, a bill was proposed in California which, if passed, would ban little plastic microbeads used in exfoliated face wash and toothpaste. You may not have even known they're there, but these tiny beads cause big problems for fish and wildlife. Made of plastic, the beads don't break down in water, and they're too small to be filtered out by sewage systems. So, what happens to them? They end up in lakes and streams. Fish and other animals swallow them inadvertently or because they look like a cluster of fish roe, and the beads get stuck in their digestive systems. Just like when animals swallow plastic bags, once they swallow these microbeads, they become unable to absorb nutrients. Now, if the bill passes, companies would need to replace those beads with an exfoliant that can biodegrade naturally. Much better for fish and other wildlife. Plastics aren't the only products that affect fish. Here's a crazy one. Did you know that all the medication we take is having an impact on marine life? Trace amounts of antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, and birth control have been found in almost all public waters. You might be wondering how it gets there. Well, when you swallow a pill, your body breaks it down and it gets absorbed into your bloodstream. But whatever parts don't get absorbed are converted by your body into water-soluble particles that get excreted in urine, which of course ends up in the sewage system. And from there, it's just a few more steps to public waters. Anyway, here's the crazy part. Researchers who study the effects of antidepressants on marine life have found that very low concentrations can actually change fish behavior. Studies have shown that super low trace amounts of Prozac cause antisocial, anxious, and even homicidal behavior in minnows.
What? That sounds crazy.
No, it's true. There have been several studies, and in the studies, female minnows that were exposed to amounts consistent with that you find in wastewater produced fewer eggs. Male minnows in the study ignored females, spent more time off on their own, which caused reproduction rates to decrease, and it took them longer to capture prey. And in some cases, the male minnows actually became really aggressive and killed females.
I guess there isn't enough Jack Daniels or Viagra in the water.
Yeah, they need some little blue fish pills. Yeah. Well, anyway, the proposed ban on plastic microbeads here in California could mean some very good news for fish. And it's a good reminder to all of us to keep in mind what's downstream.
Crazy. I'm crazy for feeling so lonely.
In not so good news for fish, AP News reports that wildlife officials are trying to determine the cause of a fish die-off at Lake Mendocino, about 10 miles northeast of Ukiah. Last Sunday was the first report of dead carp in the lake, and since then, hundreds have lined the shores. State wildlife officials and biologists are investigating and report that the water doesn't appear to be too warm or lack oxygen, since the die-off is affecting only carp and not other fish. Carp are pretty resilient, but there are some diseases that only affect them. There was another fish die-off earlier this month down in Marina del Rey, where tens of thousands of anchovies were found dead. In that case, the culprit was determined to be a lack of oxygen in the marina due to record-breaking temperatures.
But no microbeads, right?
No microbeads in this case.
You got any good news?
The microbead story was good news. They're trying to ban the microbeads.
At the expense of my face not being exfoliated.
There are plenty of natural products out there with biodegradable exfoliants.
Okay.
And now, back to real news.
On Tuesday, the California State Senate unanimously approved a bill aimed at addressing the problem of seafood mislabeling. The bill is now headed to the State Assembly. Now, I didn't realize what a problem seafood mislabeling is. If you're like me, you try to be pretty aware of what you're eating, but chances are when it comes to seafood, you may not be eating what you think you're eating. A study done last year found that 52% of all fish sampled in Southern California and 38% of those sampled in Northern California were mislabeled. There's no clear guidance in California law right now with standards on labeling, and mislabeling has all kinds of effects. People with allergies could unknowingly consume something potentially dangerous. Certain groups, like young children, pregnant women, and breastfeeding moms, are advised not to eat fish with higher mercury content, like swordfish or shark. And not only is mislabeling hard on the consumer, it also undermines conservation efforts. In a study done by Oceana last year, they sampled fish nationwide at restaurants, grocery stores, and sushi bars in places including San Francisco, LA, and Monterey, and they found some crazy results. 84% of sushi samples were mislabeled in Southern California. 58% of restaurants visited in Northern California sold mislabeled fish. 52% of all fish sampled were mislabeled in LA and Orange counties. 38% of all fish sampled were mislabeled in Northern California. 27% of grocery stores visited here in Northern California sold mislabeled fish. And Southern California leads the nation in mislabeled fish.
You dick!
The new bill would make it illegal to sell, wholesale or retail, any fish without identifying the species by its common name. This legislation has been modeled after a similar law passed in Washington state.
Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future.
Here in the Bay Area, members of the Coastside Fishing Club released 130,000 salmon smolts into a salmon acclimation pen at Pillar Point Harbor on Tuesday. The club purchased the pen to help get smolts safely acclimated to saltwater and avoid dangers like delta pumps and predators. This is the first of 3 planned deliveries for a total of 360,000 salmon. The Coastside Fishing Club is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the recreational fishing experience for all Californians. This is the club's 3rd year doing the Pillar Point Harbor Pen Project, and the money to purchase the pen, pay for tags for each individual fish, food, etc., all comes from contributions. For more info on the Coastside Fishing Club, head on over to coastsidefishingclub.com.
To pass the time of day.
Looking for a great Father's Day gift? How about a gift certificate to go fishing with Feisty Fish Guide Service? Scott Feist is a longtime RodMob favorite. Many listeners have fished with him for stripers, salmon, or shad on the Sacramento, Feather, and Yuba rivers and know that Captain Feisty puts his clients on the fish. Right now, when you buy a gift certificate, you'll get a free Feisty Fish Guide Service hat, too. Hit up feistyfish.net for details. And stay tuned because later in the show, we'll be giving away a free trip for two with Captain Scott Feist. Well, that's it for the headlines. Now for some tight lines. Here are the latest reports on the best Northern California fishing.
Starting with saltwater, here's our report for the ocean this week. Yep, the past week we've had full limits of wind. Mother Nature has kept most boats in the barn. The reports we saw from Bodega Bay, the Gate, to Half Moon Bay was wind, wind, wind. Boats out of Monterey and Santa Cruz that stayed inshore got some good scores of rockfish. For a North Coast report, here's Kenny Priest of Fishing the North Coast.
Well, most of the charter boats haven't fished since Wednesday. And then I heard a couple guys went out this morning and the ocean wasn't that bad. I think they were just private boaters and they were actually catching some fish. From what I heard, the ocean wasn't as bad as predicted. And I know at least one boat was fishing out of Trinidad and they were catching them. So the salmon are still there. The good news is, there's fish out there. The bad news is it looks like till Wednesday we're going to have some pretty big swells here, along with a lot of wind.
For more from Kenny, jump on www.times-standard.com/fishing the North Coast.
In RodMobber reports, looks like Tony Varela had a fantastic dinner last Monday night. Tony fished the Marin shoreline just under the Golden Gate Bridge on Memorial Day and posted some pictures on our Facebook page of his bounty, a nice halibut and a load of crab.
Shore anglers are still getting some stripers in the surf around Pacifica and Montera on both bait and lures.
Rock fishing north of Pigeon Point opens today, June 1st, and ocean conditions should be getting better soon. But play it safe, check the weather forecasts, and wear your PFD.
With the crappy ocean conditions and the hot striper bite, Bay Area anglers hit the San Francisco Bay. And one of those guys is right hook captain Jay Lopes. We spoke with the skipper this week. Well, Jay, what's the word out there? Where are the fish? And are you catching them?
Yeah, we're actually on the fish, Scott. As you well know, and most people know, the striped bass fishing in the bay is probably some of the best spring fishing we've had. In a few years for stripers. As for halibut, we've been focusing a lot on halibut on my trip, Scott. We're fishing all over the place. Some days we get one or two, other days we don't get any. Then one day we stumbled on 5 of them. Most of my guys like looking for halibut. When we're looking for the halibut, we're catching the stripers. There's bass all over the place. As for the halibut, they're from Angel Island, Alcatraz. There's a few fish on the Berkeley Flats. And then Southampton Shoal has a bunch of fish up on it, a lot of undersized fish. Just the other day, my last trip, we had 16 undersized halibut. So we had plenty of action. Only were able to get 2 keepers out of it.
Nice.
Yeah, just some tips out there, guys. When you're fishing the bay right now, just kind of be patient and don't move around too much. That's all I can tell you. If you know there's some fish in the area and they stop biting, don't get discouraged and move. Just stay put and they'll bite at some point in the day.
Sweet, man. That's rocking. Boat's looking good too, man. I'm digging the upgrades.
Yeah, we worked our tails off before we took the boat to Berkeley 2 weeks ago, but we got 2 brand new Yamaha 4-strokes on it, brand new 150s. We basically gave the whole boat a facelift. It's been a long 10 years. The boat's looking great, and you know what? We're going to continue fishing.
Cool. And then after the bay, where are you headed? What's next?
We're heading to Bodega Bay. We're going to be in the bay. We do have a handful of openings still for fishing the bay. For halibut stripers until June 25th. And then once June 25th comes, we're venturing back up to Bodega Bay, where we're going to be focusing, most of our efforts on the ocean salmon run. And, we got a lot of upwelling going on out there. There's a lot of wind and the fishing. There's a lot of fish around. And that's what we're going to do, go back up to Bodega, fish the close runs. The nice part about Bodega, why I go up there, is we don't have far to go to the fish. A far run out of there is 13 miles. A standard run out the gate is 13 miles just from Berkeley to get to Point Bonita, and then from there to go out to N Buoy, W Buoy, Fairlawns, it's another 20, 25 miles, or even Duxbury's 12 miles. So you're talking 24 miles just one way out the gate, and you come up to Bodega Bay, and we can fish, 3 to 10 miles from port, and they have great salmon fishing, and the rock cod fishing up there is some of the best we have in our area.
Contact Jay Lopes of Right Hook Sport Fishing at righthooksportfishing.com. Follow him on Facebook or give him a call at 916-417-5670.
Anglers south of the Bay Bridge are enjoying some steady sharking and finding a few halibut. Tides this coming week in the Bay should improve the bite.
In the Delta, it looks like the striper bite is quieting down, but there's plenty other fish in the Delta. Some sturgeon are still hanging around the mothball fleet, and there's plenty of bass opportunities throughout the Delta.
Mobber Scott Sellers hit the Delta last Wednesday and fished out of B&W, throwing Uzuri Stacy's in Ghost White, and got into a couple undersized stripers, 4 bass, 2 largemouths, and 2 spotted bass. Richard Waters also sent us in a Delta report this week. Richard said the bite in Martinez was slow, so they moved to the Carquinez Straits and tightened their lines on some rays soaking grass shrimp.
Now let's look at the lakes. Clear Lake has been good for bass and lots of big old catfish.
And there's some good fishing in the Lassen area. Limits are common at Eagle Lake and Lake Almanor.
Yeah, Sierra Drifters Guide Service has been reporting an awesome bite at Eagle. And last year I ran into Tom and Doug of Sierra Drifters, and they had 3 boats camped up there for the season, and it looks like they're back and knocking them dead on the fly.
And Lake Almanor guide Doug Neal was on the California Sportsman radio show yesterday and reported that there's lots of active fish in the 3 to 4 pound range, and he got limits around the Rec 2 area, trolling fast action lures through the schooled up minnows.
There's plenty of trout to be had at Collins Lake. This week, trolling rapalas and soaking power bait was the ticket. And we got a Collins Lake report from Scott Sellers. He fished there Thursday for 1 bass while trout fishing. It was a 1.75 pound spot, trolling 30 feet following the shoreline about 100 feet out.
Things are up at Pardee Lake, like the water level and the bite. Kokanee are outbiting the trout. Trollers can get limits of both working up the river and in the south end. Bank anglers are hooking up near the boat launch.
Similar story at New Melones. More kokanee and less trout for trollers. Limits of cokes are common off Rose Island and around the dam. The night bite for trout is on at New Melones and other mother-lode lakes like Amador and McSwain.
Fishing is excellent at Lake Berryessa right now, and that's good news for the big fishing derby coming up this weekend. We're seeing lots of great reports of trollers slamming kings, trout, and kokanee. Eric Gordon posted a great photo on our Facebook page of 12-year-old Johnny M. holding up his first ever fish, a 22-inch, 5-pound rainbow he caught at Berryessa on Tuesday.
Stripers at the O'Neill Forebay off the San Luis Reservoir are smacking lures and pile worms off the Visitor Center and around Check 12. Bank anglers are getting plenty of action, too.
There's good striper action at Lake Del Valle, too, using anchovies in Heron Bay and in the Narrows.
Guide Rick Kennedy of Tightlines Guide Service has been fishing lately at Lake Oroville and in the Sierras at Lake Stampede, Lake Tahoe, and Donner Lake. Donner Lake is a favorite of mine, and the fishing can be really good this time of year. This week, we spoke with Rick Kennedy about Donner Lake and also got an update on some other fishing he's been up to. Well, thanks, Rick. Thanks for being on the show today. Excuse me. I grew up fishing on Donner Lake as a kid. My parents were both teachers, so we spent our summers there at a family cabin. It's always been a favorite lake of mine. And then later, as an adult, I even caught my first kokanee in Mac. And I just kind of wanted to have the listeners learn more about Donner Lake. And I know you do a lot of fishing there. What can you tell us about Donner?
Well, like yourself, Scott, Donner is kind of one of my favorites. I don't think there's many lakes around that have the scenery that Donner does, and it's just a nice little lake. And surprisingly enough, and unfortunately it's not this year, but I've taken kokanee up to 19 inches out of Donner. I've recently done a couple trips on Donner in the last week, and the average kokanee size this year is probably right around 12 inches, I'd say. But they're just bright silver and nice, clean fish. I mean, they're perfect for eating. And the action's been good. The first day I was there, I think, was last Sunday. It was just a pretty crazy bite. It was really good. I was there, I lose track of days here, but I think it was the day before actually it was yesterday. I was on Donner, and it was a little tougher bite because of the wind and stuff. We still did fine, got our fish, but just had to work a little harder for them. And then also, you've got the bonus fishing there. You got some huge Mackinaw that reside in that lake. It's not uncommon to be catching Mackinaw on kokanee gear out of that lake, even if you're not targeting them. It's a great lake. It's one of my favorites. Like I said, it's a pretty lake, and it's easy to get to, and it's just a all-around nice lake.
Would you say it's more of a kokanee lake or a Mack lake? I
think that depends on who you talk to. I mean, there's some diehards. Yesterday I was out there kokanee fishing. There's 2 or 3 regulars that are out there, beating on the Mackinaw. And I talked to both of them at the ramp when we came in, because we all kind of got blown off at the same time. Yeah. And they hadn't had a touch on Mackinac, which is, not uncommon. That's kind of the way it is there on that lake. You either do good or you don't. And that's the nice thing about the kokanee fishing. If you go out there kokanee fishing, you're going to get the Mackinac. If they're biting, you're going to get probably a good chance of getting one on your kokanee gear. So it just depends on who you talk to.
So then can you share with our listeners some of the techniques that you use to target those fish?
Well, Scott, it's kind of funny because I've gotten to the point where I was really, really technical about all the different stuff I was using and different colors and all this, everything was a little bit different in every lake. And as you know, I do kokanee on Stampede a lot, and Tahoe and Donner, and a lot of the other lakes. And I've gotten to the point the last couple of years, I don't know if it's just I'm getting lazy or what, but I pretty much use the same setup everywhere I go, and it seems to work. And that's a regular, like a 4/0 Dodger, like a Seps Dodger. Watermelon happens to be my favorite color, and I don't think that it's any better than any other colors. It's just what I have confidence in and what I've been using. And I've been pulling a lot of spinners for years. I used nothing but bugs, the old Ted bugs, and I still have a bunch of them. I just for some reason I've been running spinners, a lot of Uncle Larry spinners, a lot of Rocky Mountain tackle spinners with my regular old shoe peg corn. And the one thing I can tell you I've done lately, the last few years now, different from the past, is I've been running the Shark cannonballs and no ball flashers. And I don't know, I've tried to prove that they don't work, and I can't. Right. And so it's one of those things where I have confidence in them, so I just keep using them. And the guy next to me might be using something completely different that he's got confidence in, and he's doing just fine too. So it'll boil down to that confidence thing.
How far back are you running your lures off of the downriggers?
Oh, I'd say probably a lot of it has to do with how deep I'm fishing. But if I'm fishing like 20 feet deep or deeper, I'm back 10 to 15 feet normally. If I end up running shallower, I'll go a little bit farther just to get it away from the boat.
Cool. Are you getting max to hit the lures with the corn on them too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a lot of fun, when you catch a 5, 6, 8 pound mac or something like that on a little kokanee rod. And you're running 6 or 8 pound tests. That makes you nervous right off the bat because you're worried you're going to have them teeth in them things, you're going to break something. And so it puts a lot of excitement when you hook something like that.
It's a great place to fish. The wind can kick up. Usually whitecaps could come as early as 11 o'clock on some days, it seems there. But traffic's usually pretty good unless you're there on a holiday weekend. I think it's a great lake. Well,
actually, the whitecap started at 8:30 yesterday morning. But we still managed to get our fish. And you're right, the traffic can get pretty crazy there. But I got to tell you, the lake is full. Launching is not an issue at all. It's in great shape. And I fished it on Sunday of Memorial Weekend, and I had my limits of fishing off the lake before 9 o'clock. The only thing out there until then was fishing boats. It's one of those lakes where in the summertime, especially on a weekend or a holiday, you want to get out there early and try to get off early.
Where have you been fishing? Over by was it Loch Leven Lodge? Out that way?
I have. I went last Sunday, like I said, it was my first trip, so I really didn't know where the fish were. So, luckily it's not a big lake, so I used my electronics and my eyes to see where other boats were and that kind of thing, and went and looked over on the other side across from the ramp over there. There's a couple of places they call the Blue House and that kind of thing. There's usually some fish over there. I didn't mark anything over there, so I seen a couple of boats working over by Loch Leven, went over there, and sure enough, there was some nice little schools of fish, and we just started beating up on those. So that's a nice thing. Another nice thing about the lake is you can pretty much see the whole lake from any place on the lake and kind of see where people are working. It's not hard to figure out.
Can you tell us about some of the other fishing you've been doing?
Yeah, I've been bouncing around a lot. Today's the first day I've had off in a couple of weeks. Been fishing a lot on Lake Oroville for the cohos and kings, doing pretty well there. We were doing extremely well, and then I don't know what happened. They started dropping water pretty good and kind of put them fish on a little bit of a off bite. And I wouldn't even say they're necessarily on an off bite. It's more about trying to find them. They were out kind of suspended in the main body of the lake. Where I found them last week was all related to structure right on the bottom, like in 60 feet of water where you're actually had downrigger balls hitting the bottom. But boy, we've been getting some beautiful holdover cohos, 20 to 24 inches, and a lot of nice kings up to 20 inches. And then I've also been on Stampede, which is just an absolute crazy kokanee bite. I mean, 5 limits of fish in less than 2 hours. It's just Stampede's low. Launching conditions aren't that great. You can certainly obviously get in and out. I would highly recommend four-wheel drive if you're going to do it. The kokanee bite's just crazy on stampedes. And then we have spent a couple days on Tahoe, and I'll be on Tahoe quite a bit next week, actually chasing some kokanee up there and some Mackinaw there. Pretty much bouncing between Donner, Stampede, and Tahoe for the next couple weeks.
Very cool. So can you tell our listeners how to get a hold of you if they want to book one of these great trips? Maybe Lake Tahoe sounds like it could be a good one.
Yeah, Scott, you can get a hold of me a couple different ways. Obviously by phone, which is 888-975-0990. We just made some upgrades on our web page, and we now, you're going to laugh when you hear this because me and you've talked about this in the past, but actually on my web page now you can follow a Twitter feed and an Instagram feed on my web page. So I pretty much try to update every day when I'm on the water, where I'm going, and kind of how the bite is, and real-time information. So you can visit the webpage at fishtightlines.com.
Great stuff today, Rick. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, you bet. Thank you.
Once again, to reach Rick and Tightlines Guide Service, give him a holler at 888-975-0990 or hit him up at fishtightlines.com.
In the Eastern Sierras, there's good things happening at Crowley Lake.
Mr. Crowley.
CrowleyLakeFishCamp.com reports shore anglers are hooking trout off Hilton Point and Six Bays. Fly fishers are finding the fish are still holding in the deep water alongside of the drop-offs around Big Hilton, McGee Bay, and Sandy Point. Trolling is good in McGee Bay, and it's perch time at Crowley. The perch are making their way to the shallower water. Small leadhead jigs and twisted tails are producing.
Ken's Sporting Goods in Bridgeport's Facebook page was full of pictures of big old trout caught at the Fishin' Mission Derby.
Convict Lake continues to plant trout, and the catch of the week at Convict Lake this week was a stout 4-pound, 8-ounce rainbow caught by Jim Hicks of La Mirada on Peach Power Bait along the South Shore. The staff reports that the fish this time of year move into the deeper water, so anglers might want to get out on the lake in a boat or a float tube. Productive offerings right now are gulp worms, mice tails, and peach and yellow power bait.
Trout plants.
Trout plant trucks have been busy dumping catchable-sized fish in eastern Sierra lakes like June Lake, Silver Lake, Twins, and the Virginias. And Mammoth Basin Lake's got some new Alpers trout.
In Shasta County, Whiskeytown Lake and Macomber Reservoir welcomed some new slimy friends.
East Bay stops included San Pablo, Shadow Cliffs, and Quarry Lakes.
And some other stops this week were Lake Almanor, Collins Lake, and the Truckee River near Reno.
Hey, RodMobbers, help support the show. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a review.
On the rivers, there's been some great trout fishing on the lower Sac. Flows are low, but anglers are downsizing their gear and landing lots of trout around Redding.
Jeff Goodwin posted a great-looking photo on our Facebook page Saturday of a Sacramento River wild rainbow trout with what looks like the Sundial Bridge in the background.
The shad bite is on in the Yuba, Feather, and near the mouth of the American River, and off of Freeport and up around Nimbus Basin, but the best shad action is on the Sacramento. Both shore and boat anglers are bending rods around Verona, Discovery Park, Miller Park, and Calusa. For more on the Sac, here's Captain Scott Feist.
There's still a lot of opportunities going on. You know, I just wrapped up my striped bass season on the Sacramento River. What a year it really was. We started this season off knowing going into it we were going to be facing a low water situation. The unique thing about this year is pretty much everything I thought I knew about striped bass, including all my other guide partners and associates that I work with and network with through up here, we were wrong. There are still a lot of striped bass in the river. The river's low. The river's hot. And we were under the impression that, hey, the delta was going to be on fire the whole year. We're going to get a really, really small push of fish up the river if we get any. And we couldn't have been more wrong. I fished both the delta and the river, so I'm pretty aware of what's going on. And the river was phenomenal. Fish came back to spawn to spots where we would have never, ever, ever would have thought they would have came because of how low and hot the water was. Learned a lot, but more than that, had some great fishing. April and even the first couple weeks here in May were phenomenal. Full limits, I think my last 15, 18 trips or something, full racks. It didn't matter how many people I had. And a whole bunch. I mean, we released the females. Really, really, really good fishing. And honestly, I haven't stopped striped bass fishing because there's not targets. I've just been fishing striped bass since about March 10th, and everybody I wanted to go with me is gone, so I'm just kind of moving gears.
Yeah, I kept hearing you guys just even months back, it was, oh, yeah, we're going to switch to the Delta now, and it seemed like you guys really didn't have to get down there. Most of this area you're fishing is out of Tisdale area?
Well, it's a general area, and this is honestly from Knight's Landing to Calusa. That's the typical pattern where the majority of the fish that run up the Sacramento River go to spawn. I was moving around some, no doubt, and, Tisdale would have been kind of the epicenter of the striped bass, but sometimes north of there, sometimes south of there. But the fish were in their primary patterns like a normal high water year, which was very interesting.
You said you've wrapped up your season, but if we have listeners who are still out there fishing, do you have any tips or advice you can offer right now?
At this time of year, the bass, because the water's above 70 degrees now, they turn to what I call a summer pattern. And, I don't know, this is kind of a thing for listeners, striped bass are always in the river. Now, the big spawns and big pushes, typically start coming up in March, peaking in April, sometime usually mid to late April, and it's starting to taper off, May, some higher water years later in June. I've caught striped bass and guided for striped bass in the rivers all the way till July 4th in years past, but you want to focus a little bit more on like sandbars and stuff and slow down a little bit and fish it thoroughly. It's really hard to beat live bait, regardless if you're from shore or throwing from the boat. So get a nice big golden shiner out there and let him do his magic for you. That'd be a great tip for the listeners.
So between now and salmon season, what are you going to be doing?
Well, what am I doing? What am I not doing? Yeah, I'm working crazy. I know I'm kind of technically off until salmon season. Our salmon season in the river starts July 16th, but I'm really working every day. I've been shad fishing. I shad fished this morning on the Feather and Yuba River. And, we caught some nice number of shad, a little bit technical, low water. There's a better bite of shad going on the Sacramento River. So I'm going to hit the Sacramento River tomorrow. And I'm really just kind of gearing up. I'm running some shad trips the next couple weeks, both conventional and fly fishing. And, just kind of pronging around doing some trout and getting rods ready for salmon and kind of doing everything. Really right now targeting American shad on 3 different river systems, the Sacramento, Feather, and Yuba River.
That's cool. When you do a shad trip, do you do that mainly from the boat, or do you guys hop out and hit the shore or get the weight in the water when you're doing the flies?
Well, it's both. It depends on where we're fishing, and it depends on the anglers, and every day it's a day-to-day thing. Typically, I would say all my conventional trips are all done out of the boat if we're using spinning rods and this kind of stuff. My fly trips, depending on the river, depending on if it's a morning or an evening trip, and depending on where exactly we're fishing determines if we're wading or the boat. And a lot of times I have options. I say, hey guys, we could fish out the boat, we're going to be casting here, or I could drop you here. We'll kind of bounce around, move around. So it's kind of a day-to-day basis on the fly if we're either wading or fishing out of the boat.
Yeah, Scott, it's you're talking about how busy you are, and I'm constantly amazed at how long of a day a fishing guide has. And then I see videos that you post up, and you're out there by yourself catching striper with a flashlight strapped to your head at night. And you guys actually like fishing, don't you?
Yeah, and you got to do that sometimes. I really that video that you talked about last week or 10 days ago or what have you. It's one of those things. I was just starting to slow down. I had a cancellation the next morning. I had a list of 12 people that I could have called that would have went the next morning or even that night. But I said, and I told my wife, Amy, I said, I never get to fish. And when I do, I'm always taking buddies and friends and this kind of stuff. I just want to bring it back to the roots, and I got in my little boat. I was incognito. I slid out in the afternoon, brought some sandwiches and some drinks, and I stayed out and I fished, from before sundown till about 2 a.m. And it was just epic. It was during that last full moon, and it was phenomenal. I think I caught 25 bass to about 20 pounds, maybe 25 pounds, by myself, dark, things going on, but it just really brought back the love of what I do. Like you said, sometimes I'm grinding day in, day out, and a big smile on my face every day. But, these are long days, and some days are easier than others. But, even the easy days, they start wearing on you when you do this every day. So it's kind of fun to bring back some of that love of where this all started from.
Well, mobbers, you heard the passion that Scott has for fishing. Book your next trip now. Give Feisty Fish Guide Service a call at 530-923-2634 or hit them up on the web at www.feistyfish.net. And remember, we got that special Father's Day giveaway coming up real soon in this episode.
Woo! Fish! Woo! All right!
Catch of the week.
There's been a lot of RodMob chatter lately about Berryessa, and we got a priceless photo posted on our Facebook page this week. 12-year-old Johnny M. holding up his first ever fish, a 22-inch, 5-pound hog of a rainbow he caught at Lake Berryessa on Tuesday. Thanks for sharing, Johnny, and congratulations. You've got this week's Catch of the Week. Johnny, you've won yourself a free RodMob t-shirt, and you're featured on the cover for this week's RodMob podcast. So, Johnny, shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com to claim your prize.
And now it's giveaway time. First, congratulations to last week's winners, Scott Vaughn and Chris Ratto. These guys have each won themselves a brand new inflatable life vest courtesy of Wear It, California.
Father's Day is coming up, and we have the perfect gift for you and your dad. This week, we're giving away a fishing trip for two with Scott Feist of Feisty Fish Guide Service.
I have a couple gift certificates for dads out there. It's kind of a wide open gift certificate. I mean, we could go target striped bass, we could target king salmon, we could do Sacramento River trout, Sacramento feather, Yuba River shad, whatever we want to do. Also going to be giving some Feisty gear away, maybe some shirts, for sure some Feisty hats, and we're going to have a lot of fun spending a Feisty Father's Day.
We'll be selecting this week's winners on Friday, June 6th. To enter to win, email us at fishon@rodmob.com and tell us a little something about fishing with your dad. Or if you're a dad, you can also tell us a little something about fishing with your son or daughter. Don't forget, email us before Friday, June 6th at fishon@rodmob.com.
What do dads love to do on Father's Day? Duh, fish.
Upcoming events you won't want to miss. Here's the RodMob calendar.
Today, Sunday, June 1st, rockfish season opens north of Pigeon Point, and National Fishing and Boating Week is on from June 1st through the 8th.
This Thursday night, Ultimate Bass host Kent Brown will be talking topwater bass fishing at the Sacramento Fisherman's Warehouse at 6 p.m.
Also on Thursday at 7 p.m., the Patagonia store in San Francisco will be screening the film Damnation.
There's a great good here that belongs to the American people that's being stolen by a very small, corrupt branch of the federal government.
This film focuses on growing awareness that removing deadbeat dams can restore our rivers and fisheries and improve quality of life.
You can take half of a salmon fishery, eat it, and they'll keep replacing themselves. What kind of a species throws that away?
For tickets and info, go to damnationfilm.com.
Lake Berryessa was just named #1 on the list of the top 100 family fishing and boating spots in the United States. And this Saturday, June 7th, the California Inland Fisheries Foundation Lake Berryessa Salute to Summer Park Party and Fishing Derby is the place to be. The Derby Awards will take place in the town of Winters, along with a full blowout including booths, music, food trucks, wine and beer gardens, raffles, boats, and fish will be on display. There'll be great stuff for the kids and more.
The fishing right now at Lake Berryessa has never been better. But whether you're fishing or not, come on out and stop by the RodMob booth and say hi. We'd love to meet you, and we'll have some awesome giveaways going on, including some Berkeley rods and sweet polarized fishing sunglasses from Fisherman Eyewear.
I'm a huge fan of Fisherman Eyewear. I've been wearing one of their brand new models for 2014, and I'm loving the fit and the new lenses. I feel like these glasses were custom made for me.
You know, Fisherman Eyewear is celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. They were the first sunglass company to introduce polarized sunglasses to the angling world. And this coming weekend, 3 Berryessa Derby winners will be walking away with a free pair of these awesome sunglasses too. For more info on the Lake Berryessa Derby and the Salute to Summer Park Party in downtown Winters, head on over to CIFFI.org or call 209-810-9603.
Also next Saturday, June 7th, Buck's Outboard in Sacramento is hosting an open house and swap meet at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There'll be seminars, demos, food and drinks, prizes, stuff for kids, and more.
Sunday, June 8th, there's a free kids fishing derby at Ron's Place on the River in Isleton, sponsored by the California Striped Bass Association Isleton Delta Chapter. It'll be a day of fun for the whole family. Space is limited to 100 kids, and signups are due this weekend. So call 916-777-4415.
Thursday, June 12th, Ken Jones, author of Pier Fishing in California, will be giving a free seminar at the Fisherman's Warehouse in Fresno at 6:15 p.m.
Coming up Saturday, June 21st at New Melones Reservoir, it's the Central Valley Anglers Mr. Kokanee Memorial Kokanee Tournament. For info, click on over to centralvalleyanglers.org. For details on these and other upcoming events, check out our events page at rodmob.com. And if you have an event you'd like to promote, just drop us a line at fishon@rodmob.com.
Thanks everyone for listening and sending in your reports this week. We got a big batch of RodMobber decals going out to RodMobbers all over Northern California for sharing their fishing reports with us. Wondering how you can get hooked up with a free weather-resistant decal? That's easy. Just share your report with us next time you go fishing. Post to our Facebook page, shoot us an email at fishon@rodmob.com, or leave us a message on the RodMob hotline at 855-RODMOB1.
And we just want to take a moment to ask for your feedback. Whether you've been with us for the past 87 shows, or this is your first one, we'd love to hear your thoughts, suggestions, and even constructive criticism. Are there topics you'd like us to cover on the show? Do you have an idea for a special segment? What bands do you want to hear during the news? We want to hear it all. You can call and leave your suggestion on the RodMob hotline. That's 1-855-RodMob1. Shoot us a message on Facebook at the RodMob Facebook page, or email us at fishon@rodmob.com.
Well, that's it for today. Have a great week.
Happy National Fishing and Boating Week, and don't forget to tell a friend about the RodMob.
And until next time, keep us posted.
RodMob.
It could have been Chihuahua.
Yeah. Have you ever had Chihuahua? It's pretty good.
All right, upcoming events you won't want to miss.
You got to brine it first, though.
You're kind of wacky in the morning. We're going to get some complaints if you talk about brining Chihuahua.
Why? Because people are against brining it?